the Harley Texts.
Yes.
What in the world are these, dude?
I think that these are not the poneglyphs.
Okay.
Because giants are so old, I feel like they would know what the poneglyphs are 100%, and the poneglyphs are a relatively new thing that their parents or grandparents might know they exist.
Yeah.
I feel like it's got to be something before then.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally back with another One Piece chapter. We just had chapter 1136, and boy, was that a crazy, crazy chapter. Lore Piece is officially back. So today we're going to kind of go through the chapter as a quick review and give our thoughts on what happened, because quite a bit happened. Then we're going to go ahead and go through some of your comments. So I had people leave comments on my reaction as well as in the Discord, so we're going to respond to those. And then we'll give our predictions towards the end as far as what we expect for chapter 1137 and beyond. But Kev, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing fantastic. Like you said, this was an absolutely amazing One Piece chapter, and I felt as though, even though nothing happened, a lot happened. And that's the best part of One Piece, whenever we just get all these crazy lore drops and just little nuggets of info that just change everything in like one little thing. I always love when Oda does this, and for nothing happening, this was a pretty great chapter. I would say like probably an 8 or a 9 out of 10 off of not much happening, which is really great.
As far as setup chapters go, which this one technically was one, I feel like this is like a 10 out of 10 type of setup chapter. You know, this is a lore chapter for sure, but at the same time, a lot was set up for the future as far as the Gods Knights go, as far as Loki goes, you know, all that kind of stuff. So we're gonna get into that, but for, I guess, for anybody who hasn't been on Redacted recently, because I haven't uploaded a whole lot, we are going to be doing a chapter review every single chapter for the rest of the year, and I have a little bit of a different format than usual. So you didn't even see this in the first Redacted video with Sai, but I do have it ready this time. So I'm going to go ahead and show it off here, because the first thing we need to talk about is the first thing we saw in the chapter, which is Who's hideout, his house. This was kind of surprising to me. I've been a little bit disparaging of the Yamato cover story so far, because it's moved so slowly, right? But this is the most hyped chapter since the first one, which was Onigashima, and I couldn't help but make a little bit of a parallel here to Onigashima, because it's a giant skull here, right, with horns, and it's very similar to Onigashima, right? So I don't know, Kev, do you have any thoughts on where that might be going?
That's actually really interesting, because I didn't put that together. I was really interested in the concept of Kaido's followers that are kind of the leftovers turning into these vandals that would kind of like raid all throughout Wano. I thought that was really compelling. We saw that with obviously Hold'em in the last few chapters, but seeing with Who's Who, it's like, oh, this is an actually important person in Kaido's organization that's doing this still, because we know King and Queen, they got bodied, you know.
Right, taking Impel down, 90% chance at least.
Yeah, more likely than not. Jack, I don't even know where Jack is, to be honest.
We haven't seen him. He's looking for Kaido, man. That's been my agenda. That was my very first video on YouTube. Was that the reason we didn't see Jack is because he's looking for Kaido, because Kaido's going to be stuck in the water because he has the fish fruit and he can probably breathe in the water, because Jack was the one who was stuck in the water after Zoe, so he knows to look for him down there, right? That's been my thought. Because it's like, what else is Jack doing? He's got to be around somewhere. It's not like he left, you know. He's got to be in Wano somewhere, so maybe that's what we're going to find out here. I actually theorized in a different video that the culmination of this cover story is going to be us finding out what happened to Kaido and Big Mom, because we don't know yet. And every maybe 95% of the cover stories in One Piece have been about figuring out what happened to a villain that we beat, so they can re-enter the story in an organic way. Like, we had, the Baroque Works cover story, we had Buggy's cover story, we had an L cover story, we had the Cypher Pole cover story, we had the Caribou cover story. Like, all of this is to bring back the villains, right? And so for Kaido and Big Mom, we're back here at Wano, we're wondering what happened to them. It kind of makes perfect sense. And so maybe this is maybe Who's Who and Jack and all these guys have started like an operation to find them, right? To like restart the Beast Pirates or whatever. And so maybe that's where it's headed. I'm not sure.
I definitely agree. I think that would be a cool way to continue their relevance in the story because the Beast Pirates' main mentality wasn't about really loyalty. It was about strength.
Yeah,
Strength was the main
meritocracy.
MO with a lot of their besides King. King was obviously very loyal to Kaido for different reasons. But I do think characters like Who's Who, like if Who's Who could kill Kaido, he would. That's what I think personally. And I feel like many of the people in the organization are like, look, we're strong. We could probably still do this because, we don't have to worry as much about Luffy and Law and Kid being around. We could probably still make a little slice out of Wano for ourselves, if not the whole place, if we find something big. And obviously, what they're looking for is going to require something big. Like, I just actually had this thought right now. Do you remember a few chapters ago, they were like, oh, that one carpenter guy with the nails in his nose, he's missing for some reason. Yeah. He probably was the guy who built this thing for Who's Who.
Oh, they probably made him do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even put that together. But the fact that they are trying to put something together, I mean, at least right now, it makes it seem like they want to, restart in a way. Like what you said, with this being a parallel to Onigashima, it could definitely be that.
Yeah, and I think this could also be where Yamato maybe gets them to, to join. I don't know if it would be Yamato or Momonosuke technically, but like they become scabbards, right? Like I think that might be where this also goes. Is maybe Yamato comes in, beats Who's Who, right, and it's like stop doing all this, and then Who's Who's like, all right, I'll follow you instead, because like you said, it's meritocracy. If Yamato beats Who's Who, he'll just be like, all right. So then Yamato is getting retainers just like Odin did in a very similar way, because Yamato is marching around Wano just like Odin did, right? So
that's really great. And that goes into the whole idea I kind of had with them being vandals, because all the scabbards were vandals as well. Got it. To start. That's awesome.
Yep. Cliff, come here, buddy. We're recording something. Sorry, guys. Cliff had something to say. Clearly, he was hyped about the chapter as well. I can't blame him.
Big Cliff.
And so the next thing I want to jump to is the Colin and the Nika pose moment here. I got to pull the panel up. There you guys go. So I love this. So Colin here, which his name is spelled like colon, but I'm just gonna say Colin because I feel like that should be the translation. And he was in the Nika pose here while everyone was partying, and he's already a Luffy parallel because, as you guys may remember, he asked Shanks to join the crew in the bar, which is exactly what Luffy did when he was a kid. You know what I mean? And so seeing Colin in the pose here, while he's running behind everybody, and they eventually talk about the Sun God like 2 chapters later. I just love this moment. I don't have a whole lot to say other than that. Oda's cooking just for the parallel right here. So, any thoughts on this, Kev?
No, I completely agree. I feel as though Colin's like Luffy parallel stuff has only been getting stronger and stronger. With him being the only other giant who's young, who doesn't really vibe with Elbaf and stuff like that. I just thought that was really cool. And obviously, like the second I saw that pose, my eyes were like, whoa, what's going on there? Especially because this chapter had a lot of stuff with the sun gods, like importance in their culture. And I especially liked, and we'll probably talk about this later, is the way people interpreted the sun god differently. I thought that was a really, really interesting concept that Oda was building on this chapter. And I feel like the one who realistically is the most like the sun god is Colin, obviously, since he's meant to parallel Luffy. So I don't know. I really liked it. I think it's really cool, and I'm really excited to see all the stuff Oda's building up with Colin. I think he has a lot of potential to be a cool character, and obviously the child characters in most arcs in One Piece have a lot of importance when it comes to like narrative stuff. So I think Colin will end up being a really great character, like Tama and Momonosuke and many others.
Yeah, same. Colin, like you said, he's gonna be the Tama of this arc, but different because he's not like suffering like she was. But regardless, that Oda's setting up something special for Colin, and I'm a fan of it for sure. We got to figure out who his dad is soon. I was hoping that would be this chapter, but so the next thing I want to discuss, I don't have a panel to pull up for this because it's gonna be real quick, but Usopp bringing up oars. Okay, so I think this is a little bit underrated because it's just kind of Usopp hyping himself up, right? He's giving a lie to make himself seem amazing, but I'm I think this might be a foreshadow that he is going to beat Loki later or get credited for it, and that's how he'll become the Brave Warrior, because he's talking about beating Ors, and whenever Loki was introduced, it looked just like Ors's introduction, where he's in a snowy place, chained up, has the horns, you know, and ancient giants and giants. Like, if there was a place to learn about ancient giants, it's probably here with the giants who have this history from so long ago, which we're going to talk about that in a second, too. Mm-hmm. So to me, I think this is really important. And also, as we're going to bring up, I think the God's Knight that we met, I think her powers resemble Moria's a little bit, and I know people might think, like, how does that work when she had, like, the bandages, and we'll get into that, but aesthetically looks similar to Emu's attack, which also looks similar to Moria's in a certain way, and Moria used an attack just like that girl against Ors Jr. in Marineford. It looked the exact same way, had an arrow pointing upward, but it stabbed through Ors Jr. instead of, like, hung him, but regardless, aesthetically, there's a lot of similarities, so I don't know. Any thoughts about what to expect from Ors of the Ancient Giants, Kev?
I definitely think the Ancient Giants are going to be important in this chapter. I will say, really cool kind of segue almost, because Onigashima, obviously, a lot of people speculate that is like an ancient giant. So it's cool that we're bringing up Ors, and in the exact same chapter on the cover story, we have Onigashima kind of alluded to, which I thought is kind of interesting. But I definitely think ancient.
And real quick, not to cut you off too much, but the chapter was also called The Country That Awaits the Sun, and Who's Who was the first person to talk about sun god Nika. Right?
Very true. Very true. But yeah, I definitely think the Ancient Giants, they're going to be involved in this arc somehow. Honestly, I don't fully know how. I just have a very strong feeling they're giants. Yeah, at some point they're going to be brought up. And it's like, for me, I feel like if Kaido comes back, which I definitely think is possible in this arc with Big Mom, then the Ancient Giants are 100% being referenced because of all the connections with Thriller Bark that are in, whether it's Whole Cake Island or Wano, both these arcs are heavily associated with Thriller Bark. Or's heavily associated with Thriller Bark. He's the main villain of Thriller Bark, essentially. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So he'll definitely be brought up.
Yeah, I mean, Moria himself might pull up with the Cross Guild, And
very true.
And then we're really cooking. And something you brought up there, well, a couple things that I want to touch on. I was actually typing some notes while you were saying it, just so I didn't forget. About the Ancient Giants and stuff. Like a last chapter, we saw that some kids had horns, right? Like it wasn't just the hat. Like they actually had horns coming out of the side of their head. So if there was a time to learn about this, it should be now. We should meet their parents, learn how that works, right? And then another thing, you brought up Kaido. I can't remember exactly what the context was in which you said it, but I had to write this note down. Major shout out to Bean Boy from my chat who mentioned this idea. And we're skipping ahead a little bit, but I didn't have a note to talk about this later, so it's probably good we say this now so I don't forget. Remember how Vodka Kingdom sold Kaido? And he was like, this really strong monster, and like the government wanted to use him. That was presumably the idea, and so they got a chance to join the Reverie. Well, remember, King Harold was like a globalist, right? Like he connected with the rest of the world a little bit, a lot of it. And so basically what Bean Boy said is like, what if Harold was gonna sell Loki to the government? Because what we see at the end of the chapter, he's like they're trying to make him become a God's Knight. It's like, what if Harold was going to sell Loki to the government so they could join the Reverie and have even more of a say in the world or be even more connected? And that ties to the Kaido thing. And so what if Kaido comes back or whatever, like maybe there's some amalgamation here where we're finding out like, descendants of ancient giants, or maybe it's like a mutation to become like an ancient giant. Like what if like what Loki is, like it's not like. It's kind of like how Shirahoshi is a giant mermaid, right? Like she was like 100 times the size of her mom, right? So like, what if Loki or ancient giants in general are the same way? Like 1 out of every 100 just becomes this giant beast for some reason. And I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting from Bean Boy that Harold might have sold him. So what do you think?
So that's interesting because, see, for me, I assume you're alluding to the idea that Loki is an ancient giant because of the horns on his helmet, right? I assume
he could be, or related to one at least. Yeah, seems to be that way. Something's going on.
That's really interesting because I do remember you mentioned the kids who had the horns on the side of their heads, but I remember there was a girl. She had horns like like
Yes.
that right in the front, and that obviously is just like Loki's helmet,
Yep.
which could be a cool reveal later on the arc. Obviously, I never thought about it like that, but I definitely agree with the Harold possibly selling Loki concept. I really like that. And I just really want to double down on this moment because that entire ending scene with Loki talking to the Gods Knights, I thought was especially interesting because at that point, Loki, there's no chance this dude is a bad guy. There's literally no chance, especially with what happened to his friendly wolf friend, which was crazy. I cannot believe that happened.
And Luffy vouching for Loki matters so much, even though he doesn't know much about him. It's just Luffy's a good judge of character, and even when people are bad, Luffy or they're depicted bad, Luffy kind of is able to cut through it. Well, are you are we sure that even happened? He seems like a good guy to me, man. I don't know. Some people have to do bad things. It's just that's how it is. So I think that's kind of interesting. And actually, that's a really good segue, saying good people have to do bad things sometimes. That's actually a really good segue to the next thing I want to bring up, which is something else from the chapter, which is the fact that they're talking about how he's the sun god of liberation. No, it's more like destruction. No, he's the god of laughter, right? Giving us this kind of different perspectives on what Nika was like. And I love this because, for one thing, Luffy embodies all three of these a lot, definitely. Right? I think liberation and laughter are the two that immediately come to mind for Luffy. They're the most obvious. But destruction, who's the guy who doesn't listen to the plans and runs in, and every time he beats a villain, he destroys the place, right? You think about, for one thing, I mean, not that we care about Onigashima much, but Onigashima got wrecked and then thrown into the bottom of the ocean at some point after Luffy left, or not the ocean, but their freshwater ocean they have, in the upper level, whatever, you know what I mean? And then you think about Alabasta, he literally punches Crocodile through the ground, up, you know what I'm saying? Destroys the city, kind of, at least part of the city.
It's not even just the city, it's their ancient sacred tomb.
Exactly.
A major mythologically important place, and it's just okay.
Yeah, and Dressrosa also, same thing.
Yeah. I was gonna say Dressrosa, the entire concept was he leveled the entire island. It was well, not just him, obviously the birdcage helped, but it was gone. There was nothing. But because Luffy is meant to be the goodness of destruction,
right.
From this destruction they can rebuild and have a fresh start. But versus characters like Emu, who just destroys just cuz, and Blackbeard, same kind of thing.
Yeah, for power.
The same. Yeah, power, ego, stuff like that. Luffy would never do that. And obviously, another great example is Arlong Park. He just leveled the entire place with one kick because he just saw it as a symbol of oppression. And fittingly so, obviously, that's the Marie Joie of the East Blue, essentially, which is great.
Mm-hmm. And you think about, eventually we know the Fishman Island prophecy is coming, and we also know that there's a Joy Boy apology. The Fishmen are supposed to go up to the surface, and they're right below Marie Joie. The idea that a lot of people have had is Luffy will be responsible, at least in part, for destruction of the Red Line, destruction of Marie Joie, because then the Fishman Island, they'll have to leave because they'll get all the rubble will crush them or whatever. And so there's that's a very big symbol of destruction right there, right? And remember, Dorian Brogy said the only thing they can't break is the serpent, coated in blood or whatever, which people think is the Red Line. And so talking about destruction here, it's they're hyping up the sun god he can cause all this destruction. Well, if Luffy is then the one who eventually gets to break the Red Line, that would also be kind of a cool connection there. These guys have been waiting for this god of destruction to come, and then Luffy finally is able to break something they couldn't break, right? I think something like that would be really cool. And I also want to mention something you touched on with Blackbeard. I think Luffy embodies all three of these perfectly because he doesn't even try to be any of them. And that's why he's all three of them, if that makes sense, right? But for Blackbeard or Emu, or even some other people, maybe Buggy for laughter, some people veer too much into a certain direction. You know, like maybe they try too hard for one thing. Like with Loki, he's like, I'm gonna destroy the world. It's like, well, now like you're trying to be a god of destruction. Like that's not how it really works. You just got to go be yourself. And if being yourself is a person that embodies these three perfectly, then that's when you're the actual sun god, or you have the will for it, or whatever. But it feels like Blackbeard or these other people, not saying that Blackbeard or Emo are trying to be the sun god, but I think the idea is like, you know, they're saying this figure comes every once in a while and brings down the status quo. And I think a lot of people are vying for that, but only Luffy is doing it in a way where he will be considered this. You know what I'm saying?
That's really interesting that you bring that up, because I just thought about it with Blackbeard as well. Like, obviously, he's the destruction guy. Like, obviously. And he does bring a lot of laughter. He does. Like, all those people on Hachinosu, they're loving their life. They're like, oh my god, I get to live on this island with alcohol and degeneracy and all this crazy stuff. This is amazing.
And Blackbeard's got the most iconic laugh in the series, arguably.
Exactly. But the best thing about that to me is that his black hole destructive attacks is called Liberation.
Yep.
That's genius. And I feel like we could get to that fully later, because I do want to talk more about Blackbeard and the potential of him with something that was also talked about in this chapter. But I don't know, I just really enjoy that concept there.
Yeah, that's really smart. Like that's a good call out, because it's showing kind of what we're saying right here is like sometimes liberation requires destruction. You know, like if you don't bring down the status quo and the people in charge or whatever, then you can't liberate. And so laughter is kind of the same way. Like you got to do it in like a happy way, which is kind of hard to explain, but it's just like when, you know, people get to a point where they want the destruction. You know, it's like things suck so bad, or we don't like the leaders so much that you root for that and like you're happy with it. So there's a lot. Oda's cooking on a crazy level with that kind of stuff, and to me personally.
Definitely.
And then the next thing I want to talk about is another crazy reveal, because this chapter was just absolutely jam-packed with them, was the Harley Texts.
Yes.
What in the world are these, dude? So so you know what they're saying is so the sacred Harley Texts, which were passed down for generations in Elbaf, which is something we've seen before with like you think about Fishman Island passing down like legends of the Noah and Poseidon. You think about the Nefertari passing down the letter from Lily, and also I think some knowledge about Pluton. I mean, I don't know for sure if Cobra knew what the poneglyph said, but regardless, you know, there a lot of the races, the important ones, the leaders are privy to key information. Also, Sukiyaki knew where Pluton was, right? These people pass stuff down, and then he goes on to say that the legends are written in an archaic language, so there have been countless interpretations. So no one can say for sure which translation's accurate. And this is the result, according to the Harley text. The world has already been destroyed twice before. So, the thing I want to ask you here, Kev, there's quite a few things we got to tackle here, to be honest with you.
Yes.
For one thing, are these just poneglyphs? Like, is this just the poneglyph language, and this is just, like, you know, they have, like, maybe rubbings of poneglyphs, and they've been passed down? Is this actually a totally different language? And then lastly, how accurate or inaccurate is their interpretation? Because even if you go back to Vega Punk, when he was talking about how devil fruits work and Nika, he even said, like, this is my theory, at least. And there's another one with plausible deniability where Oda's like, here's what people think, but I'm not going to say that it's for sure, you know, because like we're getting different angles of the same thing. So I just want your thoughts on all this, man. What's going on with this?
Okay, so this to me was like the moment in the chapter where I'm like, okay, this is a big bombshell thing, and I'm really excited. So personally, to me, obviously, I'm Vegapunk right now. I'm theorizing.
Yeah.
I think that these are not the poneglyphs.
Okay.
Because giants are so old, I feel like they would know what the poneglyphs are 100%, and they would know like this is the poneglyphs. You know.
That would be fair.
Which is interesting, though, because they've never left Elbaf, which is really interesting. Like, many of these people just stay here. So maybe not. There is that angle as well. But still, I I think because they're so old and the poneglyphs are a relatively new thing that their parents or grandparents might know they exist,
Yeah.
I feel like it's got to be something before them. Now, this is where I think it gets interesting. First, poneglyphs, gonna chalk that one off. I think it's something different. And the archaic language could possibly connect to the ancient giants, which could be cool as well.
Yeah.
That could be a cool way of interpreting them into the story. But now here's an angle I really enjoy. When it goes to that interpretation thing that they said, I think that entire concept of misinterpreting religion, obviously massive thing in the world, absolutely huge thing. Many people have their own interpretations of religion. This causes
Let's have the same one.
Exactly. And this causes a whole bunch of schisms, different ideologies to form, stuff like that. And that was really interesting to see come out of the sun god angle. That was something I really didn't expect, which I like a lot. And obviously could lead to the idea of the Will of D as well. How the Will of D has like a so quote unquote false D. It could just be, it's not a false D. It just is a member of the Will of D, but people just have that interpretation. Which to me, this is not where I'm going with this, but like, I don't know if this is possible. I kind of hope it is in a way, but I don't.
Okay.
Blackbeard could be the sun god as well. He could be. It's just the other bad version that some of these people interpret.
Well, yeah, because it's all like we were saying. Like if Blackbeard comes in and destroys the people that people want destroyed, then he'll be viewed positively, and that's how legends of sun gods start, right? Like, you're hoping for a savior to come. If Blackbeard comes and defeats the guy that you don't like, he's your savior regardless of all the other things he's done, right? To most people, especially with the amount of propaganda in the One Piece world,
And we've seen this with Doflamingo, obviously. Doflamingo had this entire angle of, I'm going to be the worst person ever, but I'm going to come out as the hero. Maybe that's what happened with Emu as well, and many other characters, obviously.
Yeah.
But the thing I did want to get into, which is the world was destroyed twice before. Crazy bombshell moment.
Insane.
So I'm gonna get into a bit of a theory, a theory, and this is something that is talked about not in Norse mythology, but in Aztec mythology. And you might think that's kind of weird. Why are we talking about Aztec mythology and Elbaf? That's kind of bizarre. But just trust me on this. Trust me. So the legend is called the Legend of the Five Suns. And it's this concept that the world is in the state of reincarnation, death, birth, rebirth, stuff like that. And the world has ended and will end 5 times in total. Now, I want you to keep in mind that in the One Piece world, we will be currently, in the current time, on the 4th world, not the 5th one. The 5th one will be the end of the story, right? That'll be when the world government is destroyed. Now, we originally had a first one, right? And this is according to these ancient texts, which I am presuming are not the poneglyphs, so they are older than the poneglyphs. And these ancient texts are saying that the world was then destroyed twice. So there's a first world that was then destroyed, and then a second world that was then destroyed
again. Which was the ancient kingdom.
Yeah, no. So the third world will be the ancient kingdom in this case, right?
Well,
because there could be others.
Well, wouldn't it have been the second destruction would have been the Void Century? I think.
No. So I think because I think these are older than the poneglyphs, that the poneglyphs would be the third destruction. That's what not the poneglyphs. The Void Century will be the third destruction, and that would be the current world we're in right now, right? If you can imagine that.
Okay.
And so then we would be in the current 4th world. Emu's in charge, the world government's in charge, and obviously since giants are saying this is an ancient text, and giants are super old, so this ancient text got to be ancient text. You know what I mean? I think this is before the world government even existed in the first place. So I think at the moment we're in the 4th world, right? And Luffy, eventually when he defeats the world government, destroys the Red Line, more likely than not, the world will literally change. The world will change forever. The geography of the One Piece world will never be the same. So the world will change regardless of the world literally ending. that doesn't matter because the concept of what the world is ending. The world government is over. The Yonko probably over. You know, all this stuff is going to be different forever after the world government's taken down. So then I think that will then be the fifth world. And how perfect is it? The fifth world, Gear 5, the Legend of the Sun, like all this stuff comes together in like a really perfect way, in my opinion. I love this concept of how the world changes, how the past affects the present. Like all these themes of One Piece are integrally connected to this concept of the world changing. And it even connects with the sun theme. I don't know. I really enjoy this concept. I'm curious what you think, though.
Well, I guess you're losing me a little bit on where it's the fifth world, because if the world's been destroyed twice, then to me that would mean that we're about to destroy it just the third time. So I don't know how we're all the way up to 5. You know what I'm saying?
So it would be destroyed a third time, right? So
which would be this coming destruction.
Yes. So there's one, the first original thing that would just be the first one anyway, right? And then it would be in the second one, which would be then that. So it was destroyed one time, then it's the second one. Oh,
but the second one would be the Ancient Kingdom then. Because the Void Century should be the second destruction that's happened, and then we're about to have the third one.
No, so I think the third one is the Void Century. I think the third one will be what destroys the Ancient Kingdom.
Wait, so then But wait, how is that the third one when they've said it's been destroyed twice, and then so you'd be saying that it's been destroyed 3 times?
Because I'm assuming the poneglyphs and the Void Century and all that is after this. Because like these giants, it's an ancient text. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess in my mind they would be updating the text. I guess is what I'm thinking. Like,
okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I could be wrong. I get what you're saying now, but I guess that was my cognitive dissonance. I don't think that's really the right way to say it, but that's what I didn't understand. But now I get what you're saying. So this was you're saying that this is like these texts were made and completed before
the Void Century.
Because I guess the way I'm thinking of it is kind of like the Tentata, who had history before the Void Century, and then their books just ended. But then they continued writing history afterward, because like they had info about like when King Riku came and apologized to them and all that stuff. So like they continued adding even after the world was quote unquote destroyed. But But regardless, no. I mean, I like the mindset. I mean, I would almost say you could take everything you said, but just warp it into just 3, because that might just be easier for Oda. You know what I mean? He might take the same idea, but just reduce the number of worlds, because then it's like less, lore and writing he has to do, and saying like, here's the Nika from this time. Here's the next Nika. Here's the next one. Now it seems like what I think he's gonna do is that there was the original Sun God Nika for the first destruction. Then Joy Boy, it was the second one, and now Luffy is the third iteration. And, and kind of tying to that idea of going from 5 to 3, like during Wano, we had like a 3-act instead of a 5-act structure, which everyone thought we were gonna have 5. And I think it's just Oda just is saving time. He's like taking the 5 idea, but just rotate, like kind of bringing it down. So I think you still have a point though, that like, I don't think the history is going to keep repeating itself after this. Maybe it will. Maybe that's going to be the point, is that this is an eternal thing. But maybe after this, like, it's like finito. Like we're like there's no more, like Luffy gets it right for good this time. Kind of thing.
And that's how the legend ends. When they're on the 5th one, there's no more. Like that's it. Yeah. Because they got over all these like horrific crises that ended the world beforehand.
Yeah. No, I agree. I can see the thematicness if Oda wants to like keep the cycle going and say like there will be another Nika in the future, but at the same time, with Luffy being the MC, it's like maybe Luffy should just end the cycle for good, and I don't know. Like I could see both, but I hope Luffy ends it. And a couple things I wanted to say. One thing about the Harley Text, I think I agree with you that they're the poneglyphs from the time prior, right? Like these are the poneglyphs from the first Nika age, then the poneglyphs are from Joy Boy's age, and now maybe Luffy, I don't know, maybe like the book that Deuce wrote on Ace, it will become part of the text of this age or something. I don't know.
Odin's journal type stuff, stuff like that.
Yeah. But you know, like they talked about, it's written in an archaic language, and this is a really good time to talk about something from the heroine novels. So if you guys aren't familiar, I did do a video on the novel, specifically the Law novel, but I explained some of the other ones. Are they canon? Not confirmed. The Ace one is, but not, well, pretty much is. But the other ones are kind of in a limbo state, at least some of them. Particularly the heroine novels, which talked about what certain female characters in One Piece did during the time skip. And it honed in on one Nika Robin, who was helping Koala decipher unknown languages, of all things. And there was a language that they found from an island that I can't remember the name of, but like it translated to like mushroom something, I can't remember. And Robin taught Koala how to decipher that. Like Robin looked at it and was like, yeah, I could probably figure this out in 2 seconds, but like I don't want to like, but you probably don't want me to give you the answer, right? And Koala's like, yeah, I want to learn how to decipher languages. Like not just you teach it to me, like not like a Duolingo style thing. Like I want to learn, like as an archaeologist, how to go and decipher a new language, so that way if I come across one that I don't understand in the future, I know how to read it. Like I can figure it out, right? Like what's the methodology? And so Robin's like, it's honestly kind of cool because Robin looks at it and she basically tells Koala like, well, for one thing, some of these symbols look like this language, so you should probably start there because they're using it as a base, and it was found in this sea, and a lot of people speak like this over here, so you probably want to go study some of that. And also it looks like this thing, you have it twisted 90 degrees, so rotate it so that way you read it. Like it's so cool how she just like is like, all right, well, here's all these basic things, you figure it out. And Koala does figure it out. And so the reason I bring that up is that if this is a different language, then I think a big part of this arc is going to be Robin figuring out how to read it and kind of flexing her archaeology muscle, because now she's also like in that library. Saul is the history teacher. Imagine if her and Saul got to work together to decipher a language after they've been on Ohara, right? Like they have all that connection and all that stuff back there. And so Robin, I think, will figure it out, and she will give us the accurate translation. And I think that translation will not be the same as what they have.
I completely agree. I really like that concept because obviously on Ohara they were trying to solve, other people's, like histories and stuff like that, with what was going on in the Void Century. That's not inherently related to Ohara though. These texts are directly related to Elbaf. This is Elbaf history, and Saul being the one that saved her, and then her essentially like possibly changing his culture forever. Like that feels so like genius to me, because it makes it feel as though like, oh, of course she's paying back this favor and trying to help him and learn about his own culture, because he was so seemingly negative about it when we first were introduced to him. So I don't know, I really enjoy that concept, and I don't know, I really like the idea of that being canon, the Koala Robin duo, because think about how cool that would be, because she was the one who taught her Fishman karate, and then Robin would be the one to teach her about language. Like, that's sick. That's sick.
And I would love it if Koala eventually figures out how to read the ancient language because of Robin. Like Robin passed that knowledge on to somebody, because then the Revolutionary Army has somebody that can read the poneglyphs, which like,
yes sir,
that makes sense. Like that's not something that if it happened I'd be like, well, that's just crazy. I'd be like, yeah, I mean, they had Robin for 2 years. They've had Robin longer than Luffy has, or for more time period. You know what I'm saying? So I would love that for Koala also. Major shout out Koala. Love Koala.
Love Koala.
We love Koala around here for sure. I actually got a Koala TCG card, and I was going to send you a picture because I'm like, I'm pretty sure Kev likes Koala. But then I was like,
Koala enjoyer. I think she's like probably one of the most underrated characters in One Piece, genuinely. I feel like she's so cool for the little time we've gotten of her.
Yeah.
And, obviously I'm a bit biased because I have the Sun Pirate flag right behind me. But I do think like her flashback with Fisher Tiger was so like rich in like theme and emotion and everything, that when she finally showed up on Dressrosa, I was like, oh my god, you're gonna be relevant. This is the best thing ever.
Oda, you're cooking. It's like, god, like it's just so good, man. Yeah, we love Koala, and actually I'm gonna bring her up a little bit later because Hold on, let me pull this up. Well, I'm not gonna pull it up, but the Gauze Knight, the Gunko or whatever her name is at the end, her outfit reminds me of Koala, and so we're
Koala luckily wears some stuff outside of a jacket. That she does look familiar with the goggles and the hat, especially.
Yeah. So the next thing I want to bring up here, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the Nika panel. It's just so you guys who are watching this, you guys already saw the thumbnail. I actually haven't seen the thumbnail as of the time I'm recording this because Trevor's getting busy right now drawing it for me. So major shout out Trevor Verges, artist for the channel. But this is just a crazy panel, man. This is I don't really have much to say about it as far as like, I mean, like the text here, like I think we kind of like knew that, like that we kind of touched on it with before, like the world's been destroyed twice and all that. But this was sick. And the one thing I do want to say, because people brought this up in my stream, is Rebecca from Dressrosa had a sword and a shield just like this. Like the shield looked the exact same, sword looked pretty much the exact same, and she wore like a loincloth thing. You know what I mean? Like she had like a chainmail, like barely any clothes on, pretty much. So it, there's definitely a little bit of parallel there. And you think about how Dressrosa, connects to the Void Century, right? Like the Don Quixote became the 20 Kings and were leading, Dressrosa back then. So there's like a little bit of a connection there. So, yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts, Kev? I just love the art on that panel, honestly.
Without a question, like literally, despite it being one of the first chapters of the year, if not like the first chapter of the year, this is a strong contender for panel of the year. Like I cannot even imagine thinking about like how cool it's like this cool like ancient like artwork style. When I was streaming my reaction, I mentioned it was like a Greek pottery kind of vibes, and I just love it. It's so cool, distinct looking. I hope we get more of it. It looks really, really great. It reminds me, this is a crazy segue, but it reminds me of this one show that I watched called The Owl House. Great show. Definitely watch it.
I know you love The Owl House.
I do love The Owl House.
And I love owls, generally speaking.
Who doesn't? Hey, we got owls in this arc. Maybe Oda's cooking here.
Oh, I am a huge what's his name now? Biblo. I think that's his name in the official. Is Biblo.
Oh, okay.
I think so. I think it's Biblo in the official, or it's Bibelot, right? Or Bibelot in the. Yeah. But I think Biblo is the official. Was what they said.
Okay.
Biblo.
Okay.
Major shout out Biblo.
In that series, whenever they had like these past kind of flashback scenes, they would do this really cool like paper craft thing where it'd be like a light in the back and it would be shining, so you just see a black silhouette. It would be walking like that, and it looked pretty similar to how this looked. In obviously it's more paper than like I kind of pictured as like an etching or something like that, but it looks really cool. I love whenever series do something like that for like a flashback where it's like an incredibly distinct art style that like splits it apart. I think the best other example in One Piece, which doesn't do the full art style change, but it's whenever Pudding sees her like film strips.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about.
So much, yeah.
That is amazing. Oda making like the physical version of a memory be the film reel. That's just like, again, Oda's just cooking. Like that's just the kind of it's just so good. And you also brought up like how this panel is like very unique, and you hope we get more of it. We didn't get like the exact same style, but as far as the silhouette goes, we got a very similar one later with Loki when they're going through like his life, and he's laughing in the Gear 5 pose, right? He's got his like hand over his eyes and stuff.
I was so locked in on the flashback. I was like, oh my, he's an arsonist, what? And then someone told me like, oh, he's doing the gear. I'm like, oh my god, he is doing the Gear 5 pose.
Yep. And did you catch how that's a total Odin parallel, that entire discussion? Because remember, Odin is like, when he's 2, he threw his wet nurse across the room. When he was 10, he had a harem. When he was 17, he got disowned. Whatever the series of events were. And I actually brought that up in like my first Elbaf video, and I think I brought it up earlier this arc too, where like Loki's 100% an Odin parallel, like for sure. Like Odin wanted to leave, and he couldn't because like there were borders, and he didn't have like he didn't know how to sail a ship and all that stuff. And Loki wants to leave and go destroy the world, but they have him chained up so he can't. Like there's a lot going on there for sure between Loki and Odin.
It's interesting that you bring that up though, because think about it like this: because Yamato obviously is trying to be like Odin, right? And the chained up against the massive rock, obviously in Loki's case it's the Elbaf tree.
Yeah,
that's really interesting, that little connection there. And with Loki seemingly being like the up and coming leader of Elbaf, who should be, which is like the antithesis to Yamato. Yamato was basically like, you will be the shogun, and Loki is like, you will never be the king. It's like the exact opposite, but so similar in a way, which is really cool.
Oda's cooking. He's really good with like the the children's plight, like the royal children's plight, I guess. He's really good at that whole thing. Like Momonosuke killed that, Vivi killed that. Rebecca, it's funny because like Rebecca, like her flashback part killed that. But as far as like I'm not excited for Rebecca's like future. I mean, I don't know if everyone else is excited about Rebecca. I don't know, but I'm not as excited about her. But her past was amazing, right?
She didn't want to be the princess anyway. She just wanted to be with her dad, She doesn't have the aspiration to lead like many of these other characters do.
Right.
So it's different, but it's still good, the plight stuff, like you're saying.
Yeah, Oda's so good at this. Like, I love it. He's killed it, I would say, every single time. Momonosuke is one of my favorite characters, honestly, in the whole story. Like, in my opinion, one of the best written characters, for sure. Oda's so good at this.
He's a very well developed character because of how long we followed him. And every time we got a little more of a glimpse into like his flashback and the people around him. Like, I remember so well, people might think like, oh, the prison, I don't know. But that scene where all the people are like bowing to Momonosuke, that was an amazing scene.
And Luffy, even though he saved everyone, he's kind of like Momo, like they're waiting for you, not me. Yeah. He's like, you get out there. And then Luffy's like, all right, Chopper, save me, because he's like all poisoned. Like like the whole prison thing, I know people don't like it, but the end of the prison scene, like what we're talking about, was fire, in my opinion. Like when Luffy hugged everyone, when he's like you think a little disease is gonna worry me or whatever. Like, oh, so good, man.
So cold, man.
So good. Next thing I want to talk about is a panel that we got right after that Nika one. Let me pull this up real quick. Is it this one? Yes, this. Oh wait, oops, I messed up. Cancel. Okay, we're good. This panel where after Jarl tells Luffy everything about Nika, Luffy says, "No wonder everyone's been saying I look similar, but I'm sure he's got nothing to do with me." Which I gotta say, I'm a massive fan of this. This is something that I've been saying for a long time. I think a lot of fans have. I'm sure I'm not the only one. But Luffy, he didn't want to be a hero in Fishman Island. That's his whole thing, right? Like being a god. Like, no, he wants to be himself. And you know what he wants to be other than himself? The Pirate King, which is part of him. That's all he cares about. And so for me, I love this. I think it's oops, I didn't mean to click that scene. That is it's also reminiscent of something that we saw regarding the Nika form that we saw during Wano, which I want to bring up. I also got a couple panels here. Right after he turned Gear 5 and started wrecking Kaido asked him, "Who the hell are you?" Because he's in this brand new form, right? Like Kaido already mentioned, like, what's with this transformation and stuff, right? And at the same time this is going on, I didn't include the panels. Zunisha's also like, "Joy Boy, this is so nostalgic. Like, I think we should put our faith in this boy," all that kind of stuff. But Kaido's like, "Who the hell are you?" And Luffy's like, "Who, me? I'm Monkey D. Luffy, the man who's going to be king of the pirates." It's like, it's so cool to me because that was Oda telling us, like, yes, Luffy's in this crazy new form. Yes, he's laughing like crazy, but it's still Luffy, right? Nothing has changed. It's still him. And so for us to see in this panel during Elbaf, where, straight up he learns about Nika, and the first thing he says is like, "Well, he's got nothing to do with me." I'm just like, yes, sir, Oda. That's what I'm talking about. Like, Luffy is Luffy, So I loved that. That was big for me. What do you think, Kev?
It was phenomenal. I love whenever Luffy is like, it made me laugh. It genuinely, honestly made me laugh when I was reading it because it is the most on the nose. Like, hey, this guy literally looks exactly like you. Bonnie even was looking for this person, and then she somehow found this person.
Yep.
Like, you were there, by the way, just in case you didn't know.
Yep, she called you that.
She also, it's just so funny. It's so funny. But this is all part of Luffy's charm, you know?
And real quick, I just want to say, it reminds me of the Patrick and Man Ray. Is that his name? Man Ray? I think the villain. You know, where it's like...
This is your wallet.
It's like, this is you, right? It looks like you, and you live here, whatever it all is. It's like, so it's your wallet. Nope. You know, it's the exact same thing. Yep.
Yeah, I love this, though. I always love whenever Luffy he doesn't care, you know? He's just like, I'm doing my own thing. Like, when people thought that Luffy was gonna have this crazy plot development in Elbaf, like, he's gonna learn about the Sun God for sure. And he is right now. He's literally learning about it. Yep. But if for a second you believe that, oh, Luffy's gonna like change his dream, or like, oh no, I'm the Sun God now. No, he's not. Luffy would never. The only time I could ever imagine it if it was like Bizarro World Luffy, and he's like, I'm the Sun God, Monkey D. Luffy. Imagine if he said that. That's just wrong. That's
never gonna
terrible. Happen. Yeah, no, because he's the king of the pirates, and he's Monkey D. Luffy, you know? It's those two things, nothing else. The only king is going to be Buggy, and that's it.
Facts.
That's it.
Yeah, Luffy is Monkey D. Luffy, King of the Pirates, or Straw Hat Luffy. Like, if you call him anything else, it's just, you're just wrong. You know, like, and I'm not even saying, like, you know, like, other people are definitely going to think of Luffy as the Sun God. You know, other people are probably going to call him Joy Boy. We've already seen, like, Emeth and Zunisha say that. But it's like, to Luffy, who's going to be right? Like, Luffy, that's kind of the point of, like, you know, Luffy's whole temperament is, like, he's not perfect, but as far as this stuff goes, like, the way he believes in himself, he's obviously is doing it the right way, right? That's why he's the Sun God. And I think that's what's so beautiful is him rejecting the title of Sun God and saying, well, I know that looks like me and whatever, but I'm just Luffy. That's why he's the Sun God. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like that's the I don't even know what to call it. The paradox, I guess, there.
The one who's the most like this, like, aspiration and dream and all that is the one who cares the least about it. Yep. It's always that, because if you're trying to give yourself this like goal that's seemingly like impossible to so many people, like the fact that every person on Elbaf is like, oh, I'm gonna be the Sun God. Like, no, there's no chance that you're all
0%
Sun God if you all want to be the Sun God. If that's your goal, then you're basically driving in one direction for this thing, and you don't even see all these other paths that are passing you by.
And honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised. Well, maybe I would be a little bit, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, I should say, that at some point, maybe all the Giants do go Gear 5 somehow, because we've already seen Bonnie do it. We know the energy steroids did something similar. Sulong did something similar. Like, maybe they have some way to do it. And so maybe they all do, like, become the Sun God, but that will again be the lesson, like, looking like him is not enough for Bonnie. Even if you can inflate your fist and punch somebody, that's not the same thing. And I think that's what I want the lesson to be, is that the form is irrelevant. Like, because people, even in real life, they're very, you know, visual. Like, whenever you see something, that's what you pass down. That's what you remember. That's how you identify things in nature. Like, whenever you gain sight, that's like why it's so valuable in nature, right? But I think the lesson at the end is gonna be like that. You can have 1,000,000 of them, but that's not how you're gonna identify the Sun God. Is by the way what they look like. It's their temperament, what they do, the changes they make, right? That kind of stuff. So and I'll let you talk in a second. I just want to go ahead and bring this up because it's a really good segue. I don't have a panel to bring up for it, but right after that panel I did bring up, and we brought this up a little bit before the stream, and you just said it. All the Giants have the same dream. And I think that is super lame, not from a story or plot point. Like, I get where this is going to go, and I like that. But I'm just saying from just, like, their individual perspectives, it's like, go find a different dream, man. You know, like, you all can't just... Imagine if the Straw Hat crew all wanted to be King of the Pirates. You know what I'm like?
The vibes are off then. The vibes are off.
The reason the crew is so cool is because they have complementary dreams. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not the same, but like you know, Nami wants to map the world. Well, going to Laugh Tale is going to be part of that. So it's really cool how that weaves together. The All Blue might be at Laugh Tale. Like, maybe Zoro has to become World's Strongest Swordsman to get them to Laugh Tale because he has to beat Mihawk, who's blocking the way because he's on Buggy's crew, and they meet at the doorstep. You know, there's so many things that make the dreams weave together beautifully that I just, again, I get from a plot point, this is fine, and I think it'll be cool by the end because they probably will have different dreams eventually, because I think they will learn that, like, Luffy is the sun god. Being a sun god isn't like not everyone gets to be an NBA player. You know what I mean? Like, you can like basketball and you can go play all the time and want to be a player, but like you're gonna need like a different dream in terms of an accomplishable dream, or one that is for you and how you can go impact things. And I think that's where they're at. And so again, I just think it's lame from their perspective, not for the story, that they're all just like happy having the same dream. It's like come on, do something unique, man. You know,
yeah.
Like,
there's got to be something more personal to a lot of these people. And I think one thing that's really interesting is Nami says this as well, where she's like, I assumed all of them were pirates because of all the assumptions that were told about Elbaf, and seeing like some of them don't even know what a fishman is. That's crazy.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
We knew what a fishman was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we knew fishmen, right? And that's something that's absurd to Elbaf people who are, you know, in chapter 1100 something, and they're like, I've never seen a fishman.
And they're 100+ years old. They've been around forever.
Yeah, because they don't have that drive. And I think that's why Luffy considers them kind of pathetic. It's like, you're telling me you're 100+ years old.
And fish strong.
Once, ever, we're like, I gotta get out of here. It's like the antithesis to Odin, you know?
Yep, and the Adam tree is right there. It's like, you guys got the best tree to make ships from. What, like, well, what are you doing? You know? So I actually like that. And I hope that becomes a big plot point, is like, you all want to be the sun god and you're just chilling at your island. Like, you think the sun god is chilling? Like,
do you know what the sun does in the real world? And more likely than not, the One Piece world? It circles the globe. That's what the sun does. You know, it's almost...
I like that.
What you should do if you want to be the sun god. It seems like that's important.
I like that. I didn't even think about that. That's actually a really good parallel, or like, I don't even know what the right word is, but imagery, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope they get their own dreams by the end, and I feel like they will. The next thing I want to bring up is something that I brought up to you a little bit before the stream, and I think you said that you didn't hear about this, which is, wait, let me. Oh, yep, I got it. All right, so in case nobody caught this, shout out to whoever said this in my live reaction. I can't remember, but it looks like the sword in Jarl's head is King Harold's sword. Like, you can see the little curve on the hilt there, right? That little curve upward. You can see it right there in Jarl's head. It's got like a similar hilt with like the wrapping of it. Like, I mean, that's a pretty standard like wrapping or whatever. But and we also know that Lord Jarl was stabbed trying to stop Loki. And so I'm trying to weave this together where I'm like, well, if King Harold had the sword, but you know, Loki was trying to kill King Harold, how did he get hit by the sword if it's Harold's sword? You know what I mean? Did Loki steal the sword and try to use it against his own dad? Or what? I think what may have happened is maybe King Harold somehow was like controlled or forced to, like, maybe King Harold was about to like attack himself and he was controlled. Because like, look in this panel, see how there's like black lightning in front of King Harold and like that dark shading? It makes me feel like a circle or something popped up, or some crazy something or other is happening. And like for instance, what if that girl showed up and tried to force him to just stab himself. So like it was like so nobody knew who killed him or whatever, right? And maybe that's how Jarl got stabbed, is he like stepped in so Harold didn't kill himself, and then Loki had to just finish the job because he's like, well, now Harold, he doesn't have a weapon to use, so I just got to go do it, something like that. This to me was mind blowing. I'm gonna be real.
It's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts here, Kev?
So, off rip, I'm kind of on the boat. I don't know about you. You mentioned this earlier about Harold possibly wanting to be in the Reverie, working with the world government, all this stuff. I kind of think that it is kind of crazy, but I kind of think Loki might not have killed his dad like maliciously. I think he might have killed his dad to like stop him from being like blackmailed or possessed or something like that. And that would essentially make Loki the true king of Elbaf. Like he saved his father from being like possessed by this evil spirit. And that could obviously allude to why he hates the world government so much. This connection with them killing his father. Because we had that whole flashback about the king and then we cut back to Loki. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think there's a strong possibility that Loki is, on Elbaf in the first place, is specifically chained in the underworld section to express this like negative image that's seen with Elbaf so many times. Because we even had Jarl mention this, and I remember when we did the discussion on my channel, which is about the land of lies and how Elbaf is depicted in so many different ways. Jarl literally said it in like the first or second page in this chapter, which was really cool. Mm-hmm. But Loki chaining, well, possibly not chaining himself, but being chained in that lower section adds to the impression that Elbaf is a vile place. Right. And I think especially with what we saw at the ending, with Loki feeling a lot of sympathy for the wolf, like there's no way. I think it's an act. I think a lot of it's an act. This hateful attitude. Yeah. It's definitely got to be a front for something. So I'm leaning to the idea that Loki killed his father out of mercy, out of that, versus killing him out of like cold, vengeful blood. And now this is kind of crazy because I kind of just had this idea. What if Harold was the one that stabbed Jarl right there, not Loki? But he stabbed him in the brain specifically so he would like forget part of that memory, like almost like a lobotomy of some kind, where he has that specific memory of Loki and the king dying, but something like that. Obviously, Oda doesn't have to get into crazy specifics. But
I mean, I was gonna say even it could even also just be that once he was stabbed, he just blacked out, and doesn't remember anything that happened from that point because he's just messed up, But I definitely do agree that this is not going to be as simple as Loki didn't like his dad and killed him. Like I think at this point there's just no way it's going to be that straightforward. I think Morge did a video where like the Gods Knights killed him but framed Loki or something. Maybe something along those lines, right? Like I really like the idea that the girl, like what we see in that panel is like that girl appearing and used her raps or whatever to make him stab himself. Because remember, you think about King Riku, who had to go around and kill all of Dressrosa because he was controlled by Doflamingo strings, right? And what we see later in this chapter, which we're going to talk about in just a few minutes, we see that girl's powers, and we see like it's her shirt, that's like the bandage or whatever, the wraps, whatever. Well, what are shirts made of? Strings, pretty much, right? A bunch of different strings. And so there's kind of like a Doflamingo connection right there, in my opinion. It's just like thicker strings. It's just a series of strings, basically. I think there's definitely, it's going to be something. And I think it is going to make Loki be the good guy in the end. I don't think Loki, when he says he's trying to destroy the world, like they're talking about, or like we talked about earlier too, destroying stuff is kind of part of liberating sometimes. And so for all we know, he has completely good intentions. It's just he's hyping it up in a bad way because he just likes being a badass. Maybe he just likes being edgy, whatever. Or maybe just like his interpretation of the legends is such that destruction is more important or something. But either way, he's going to be, I don't think he's like a bad dude at heart. I don't think. I definitely
agree. And I do want to go back to that panel is so interesting. Harold, because Harold looks insanely menacing.
He does.
Insanely menacing. And I'm just like, this is supposed to be the good king who, like, saved Elbaf and was peaceful. He looks like a demon. He looks like he would be some menace. Because I really like that you interpreted that as the circle. I interpreted it as like Conqueror's Hockey or something. I'm like, oh, maybe he's got like lightning because like Thor and Loki, you know, it could be that. But no, I really like that concept of the circle. Like it could be like even like a glimpse into what actually happened, but like just a little tease, you know. I like that.
Exactly, because that's all I can think of when you see those sparks and you see like that black like blast. Like it could just be some shading, right? But I feel like that's kind of what we've seen from the circles, so I kind of hope so. Now the next thing I want to talk about, I'm skipping over this a little bit because maybe we'll touch on it as we discuss this, but you know, the crew kind of talks and Zoro has this discussion about, you know, like I think Loki's using you and Luffy's kind of defending. He was like, how would you know? You never met him. I feel like that's really important because you know, Luffy, we mentioned this earlier, but Luffy's a really good judge of character. Like not perfect, but you know, he tends to have a pretty good feel for what a person's actually like. And you go back to when he was training with Rayleigh during the time skip, because we got a flashback to this when he was fighting Katakuri, and Rayleigh's like, what are you going to do when you find people that can see the future and are even stronger than I am or whatever? And Luffy's like, well, it depends on their personality. And then Rayleigh's like, what? I've never thought of that before. That's crazy. You know, and so that, to me, that's like, Luffy is always thinking about this, even like subconsciously. Like, that's like his, like, you know how he can get people on his side and all that? It's like, he has a very good feel for what like a person's like true motivation is, or like what they're really like. And so basically, you know, where this all culminates to is, you know, we see Roto on the ship, which I gotta say, that was funny. The whole Roto and Nami nonsense, right? Where he's like, slave. And Zeus is like, hey, don't forget, I'm her #1 slave, and Sanji's #2. Like, I love that. And then also, Nami's like, don't ever get close to me ever again. You know, like, I love what's happening with Roto. This dude is in the mud. I'm done with him. Vasco Shot, Vanderdecken,
Vasco Shot,
all these guys, they're all in the mud for eternity, right? Yeah, like they're all like, just we don't need them. That we don't need them in the story, but if they're gonna stay in the story, it's good that they're slaves, you know.
Oh, Vasco Shah is actually Par's favorite character.
That's what I've heard.
If you knew that,
that's what I've heard. I still remember that thumbnail that Sai did that had Par as like
Vasco Shot.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Like, had his face. I'm trying to see if I have the picture. I thought I did on my computer. I guess I don't.
So it's so funny.
But that Loki thing, where I wanted to take that was so, you know, Zoro and Luffy talk about like what's really going on, and they decide to go get the key, right?
Yeah, crazy.
Which is crazy. And so then we see them go to the castle, and we know that while the Gods Knights are no longer in the castle, Bogey and the other giant that was with him, they probably still are. And they saw the Gods Knights. And so I presume what's going to happen is they're going to walk in, see this injured giant, and they'll be like, what the hell happened? And they're going to say, Shanks and this girl showed up, or something like that. Like, I don't know, maybe they'll say it looked like Shanks. I don't know what they'll say, but something regarding that. And so I guess I'm just curious, like, kind of what you expect. You know, we're going to talk about the Gods Knights specifically in a second, but like, I mean, like, do you think, you know, are they gonna run into Shanks and that girl, or are they gonna end up freeing Loki? I don't know. Just like, where do you see that going whenever the crew gets out of there?
It's really interesting because Zoro and Luffy obviously had that discussion about, oh, he's using you, he's lying about Shanks, he doesn't know where he is, and you know, it's hilarious because Shanks could literally be right in front of him. He literally could. Exactly. Shanks could be on the island right now. And there's a lot of illusions that he is, because there's, I think it was Jarl, I'm fairly certain, who mentioned, oh, Shanks was here a few days ago, but I don't know where he went. Like, he literally even said that to and I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Like, is this not like the most obvious bait? Like, it's him. It's got to be him. And I really thought they were going to run into each other when they met in the castle, which is cool. So they probably like teleported around, went to the lower floor or something to find Loki. But I don't know. It's really interesting. I definitely think they're going to say. You said Bogey, I think, was the one giant who got wrapped up.
Yeah, Bogi is how they spelled it.
Yeah. He's definitely going to say something about Shanks because they like Shanks.
Right.
I don't know why Shanks would work with this girl who attacked me, stuff like that. Then Luffy's going to get kind of pissed probably at Loki, and it'll all come full circle down there probably. I think it'll be a fun time.
Yeah, I do think that Luffy will meet this Shanks or Stabs or whatever his name is. I do think they're gonna meet. I don't know if they'll actually talk, but I think it could be like a quick glance where Luffy's like, "Wait, like what?
That's not Shanks,"
or like that's not him, or what was like why he felt different, like something was wrong, like something, but I don't know if they'll talk, but I do think they'll see each other.
It's like a classic, scene. The characters pass by dramatically, and there's like a bit of a slow-mo, and then they continue running past. It'll be that.
Yeah, I agree. And the next thing we got to talk about, tying to all this God's Night talk, is we finally got to see the full reveal of Gunko, is what her name is, at least in the TCB. We'll see what the official says. Maybe there'll be a little bit of a difference here, but crazy design, like we said earlier, reminds me of Koala a little bit with the hat. You know what I'm saying? A little bit of Koala vibe there, but also just a couple other things to point out. We obviously got that weird eye, which we are going to talk about in a second, because I think that is exactly why we are not seeing Shanks' other eye. People are talking about, Oda's doing that because it's going to be the twin, and we're not going to see the scar. Which, if it is the twin, then hats off to you guys. But at this point, I'm like, he's definitely going to have a weird eye like she does, in my mind. Like that's got to happen. Whether it's the twin or Shanks or whoever, he's got to have a weird eye now that we've seen that. I don't know if that's like a sign that Emu's controlling them. Like maybe they have two souls in their body, so like one eye's representing one person, one's representing theirs. You know what I'm saying? Like Emu has like entered their body, and that's what that's for. We also know Emu has the double ringed eyes, right? So there's like another layer. People have brought that up before. Like maybe the double ringed eyes mean something. And then the last couple things I want to say are her shoes are also, they look like robotic. They remind me like Germa shoes.
Cool shoes. Really cool shoes.
But they almost feel like robotic, right? Like mechanical. Like, not saying they are.
Thing on the bottom.
Yeah, like it could just be a weird shoe design, like Oda's done that before. But it feels, they just remind me of Germa, honestly. But then also we see that her power, like we mentioned earlier, it's like her sleeve, like her clothes. But also, she has an arrow on the end, which, as you remember from Emu, he had an arrow on the end whenever he attacked Cobra. And there's this panel. I wonder if I can bring it up here. Oh yeah, I can bring it up. Look, I didn't have it prepared, but I got the panel on deck here. There's this panel from Marineford when Moria attacks Oars Jr., of all things, because we mentioned Oars earlier. You see he has a similar thing where like an arrow is pointing straight up, like stabbing through somebody. Very reminiscent of Emu, very reminiscent of this girl, even though she didn't stab through somebody, but she, held the wolf and had the arrow pointing upwards. It was very similar to this in my mind. So I don't know, man. Oda is teetering on revealing some crazy stuff, is the way I feel about this. Like this is wild. So what do you think, man? What were your thoughts on this?
So I definitely agree. There's got to be some crazy stuff going on. The design is cool. I wish there were like pants or something. Being in Elbaf in the snowy wasteland with no pants is crazy. It's pretty insane. But the rest of the fit I think is really cool. The cloak is cool. I love the baggy like sleeves. It's caribou in a weird way, but having for a reason, for the ability, that's really cool.
I love that.
Love the hat. I love the scarf. Love that. That she looks very cool. Literally, if she just had pants on, it would be a great design. It's like, bro, and the boots, like literally everything. I'm like, this is so good. And then
no pants.
Pants. Why?
That's Oda for you, man. I mean, I don't even know what to tell you.
But yeah, no, I like the design a lot. Apparently, someone in my chat said the name is a reference to like a military brat in Japan. That's
And-
like the equivalent. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, we'll actually talk about that in a second because somebody has a comment on that. So we will we'll actually break that down. He has some additions to it as well.
Nice. But I do want to say, I do think the ability, you know, as you know, we talked about this many times, but Moria and Emu, they got similar vibes, and you're saying she has similar vibes. I think, especially because the outfit is all black, and if you actually go back to the panel real quick, you can see it very clearly that the cape, obviously the cape that she has white on the inside. You know, very distinctly, it's a black and white fit, or at least another color that's a lighter shade. And we see shading on it. However, we see this arrow ability, and the shading is off. The shading is not normal shading, which to me gives the impression that it's not of this world of some kind. So it could be a devil fruit, or you know, if we're cooking here, it's ink. It's an ink-based ability.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I didn't even really make the connection, but like her clothes are black, but the arrow turns white. You know what I'm saying? Like it changes colors. So that's an interesting catch. So it is like turning into something else.
The shading thing I felt was so strange.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they had the white cape in the back. I'm just like, okay, something's off here. I just don't know what exactly. So I just defaulted to ink because I have to at this point. It's all I can think about.
it's the agenda. Yeah.
It's not even an agenda. It's like I just it's fun, you know?
Yeah, I was a big fan of this, and we talked a little bit about Moria and like Dofi a little bit earlier, and something I also want to bring up is, you know, Moria, like they sent Kuma to make sure that he wouldn't lose to Luffy, and then he did, and then at Marineford they sent Doflamingo to go kill Moria, and he failed to do so, but he also said those orders came from higher up than Sengoku, which means the Gorosei or Emu, which means they care about Moria's fruit. And you got to think, they sent Doflamingo to go do it to merge those two characters together even more. You know, bringing up like these control things, because both Moria and Doflamingo controlled people, right? Like used the shadow to control Oars, who was brought up in this chapter, and then Doflamingo, like I said, with King Riku. So Oda's doing something, man. And I also brought up the double like soul idea or whatever. I think this could also be like a law personality swap parallel, because remember, Doflamingo brought up the personality swap when he was bringing up the national treasure of Marijois. He's like, I could have used your power to take over the world, not to mention that personality swap power. And I'm like, Oda, like, what is happening, dude? Like, I know there's an answer weaved between all these different fruits we just talked about. I know something's going on. Just, Oda, what is it? Like, what? Yeah. Between all these guys, we're inches away from the answer. I know it for a fact. And so I just don't know what it is.
Stuff like this is what's going to make that eventual One Piece reread so crazy. It's just like, seeds.
They were planted everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah. All right, and then the last thing I want to talk about before we get into your guys' comments, which before we do, I just want to say, if you guys want your comment answered in a future video, then go join the Discord down below. I'm going to be making a channel just for redacted questions, and also leave comments on my live reactions, because that is maybe one of the best ways to do it, because I can't get to every chat during the live reaction, but I know there's a lot of good questions that I'd like to answer, and this is kind of the place to do it. But before we get into that, I want to just talk about the Shanks twin stuff, and you know, we didn't get a confirmation one way or the other this chapter, so this isn't to say that it is Shanks for sure or it is the twin for sure, but I just want to point out one thing that I think is interesting. A lot of people brought up that one panel where we see Shanks or Stabs or whoever that is, we see that the sword is on his left side, and a lot of the panels of Shanks have the sword on the other side. And so a lot of people were tagging me or saying in my stream, like, oh, it's definitely Stabs now because that sword is on the wrong side, so we know it's not really Shanks. But Oda is not super consistent with this kind of stuff. Literally, if you go to the panels before Shanks attacks Kid, he has the sword on that side. So, but if you go to like when he's like at Whitebeard's grave, or when he's with Bartolomeo or whatever. Bartolomeo. People always make fun of me no matter how I pronounce that. But whenever he's with him, it's on the other side. Like it's already flipped sides even recently, right? We've seen it flip sides multiple times now. So the sword doesn't really matter. There's really no confirmation here, and as I mentioned earlier, he is hiding the scar, but I think that's just because his eye is going to be weird, and I think that'd be a lot cooler to like kind of mislead us. Like it wouldn't have been cool to troll us for no reason, but if he's hiding the scar this whole time because his eye is weird, and Oda didn't want us to get that, you know, something's going on with him, then I think that's like a good, you know, reason to hide it, like a legitimate. He's trolling us, but also for a good reason, right?
Definitely. Because he didn't want us to know too early. And the girl, who's a new character, that's the perfect build-up to this reveal. And something that's really interesting, though, is that maybe the sword could just be on the other side because he's possessed. And that's how Emu uses the sword, you know, on the left side. It could just be that simple, too. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of possibilities with it.
Yep.
And
go ahead.
I don't know. I really like the idea of it being like a slow burn thing, especially with all the build-up this chapter alone. With, oh, Shanks was here, but I don't know where he went. Oh, well, if Loki's lying about Shanks, I'll beat the crap out of him. Like, we had Shanks brought up so many times in this chapter, and I'm just like, okay, there's no way. There's no way this isn't. Like, I don't know. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's so crazy. And the fact that we saw Shanks talk, and we saw his face. Like, it looks identical to Shanks. We obviously didn't see the one side, but I don't know.
Yep.
And he didn't sound different, necessarily. He didn't sound like how Gunko talks, with a very, like, dismissive attitude. He just talked like a normal person.
And I also, well, two things. He also asks, do we have any intel? And do you remember what he said about Kid before he attacked him? Do we have any intel on him?
Same thing, yeah.
And remember, he's from the South Blue. He's got a bounty of this, blah blah blah. Like they look through like his dossier. You know what I mean? Like they had a report on the guy. And so the fact that he's saying that right there, I'm like, well, that's something Shanks would say. Absolutely. Like, you know, I mean, I don't want Shanks to be evil. I don't think that's necessarily what's happening, but that is a Shanks line.
He's a victim. He's a victim. That's what he is. And
I brought this up in my stream where I was like, you know, I really wish we could get the anime for this soon, because then we can go by the voice actor to know, like would they give Shanks' twin the same voice actor? Maybe, but that would be like, I don't know.
I mean, they're so similar. They have the exact same vocal cord stack. It's gotta be.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. I would just be like, all right, like. I don't know. You could do better, I guess, is all I'm thinking. Like they look the exact same down to the facial hair and the hair. You give them the same voice act. Like, come on, man. Let's just not do that. But what I was thinking was, we obviously had chapter 907, right? We got that animated, and that I'm pretty sure was the same voice actor as Shanks. That was Shanks' actual voice in that chapter, right? Or that episode.
Yeah.
So if we assume that's this guy, well, then we do know that they have the same voice actor already. And so, again, it can still go either way, but I think it's just way better if it ends up being Shanks. That's what I'm hoping for.
We're part of the cause, man. We're part of the cause.
We are. We're part of the. I feel like it's a small army, but a strong one at this point. All right, so now we are going to go ahead and get into comments, and then after we get through all of your guys' questions, then we're just going to go through some predictions for the next few chapters, and then we'll get out of here. So the first question is from Pangeo8183 over on YouTube. He said, Loki's a badass and definitely gives some Zoro's vibes, and which I do agree, Loki is very badass. But he was also asking if there's a fight between basically the Straw Hats that are approaching there and the Gods Knights and maybe Loki. What are the matchups going to be? Or maybe the way I also read this is kind of like, how will that fight go down? Or what will how will all that work? Or even another thing to add on is, we know that they're going to go get the key. What if they have a tough time against the Gods Knight, so they free Loki to help them? You know what I'm saying? And so then Loki... There's a lot of ways this could go down. So I guess really, Kev, I'm just curious what you think. Like this... Are they going to fight, or what's going to happen?
I don't know. I really like the idea of the dramatic passing. You know what I mean? I'm a big fan of that trope. I don't know. It never fails to hit to me. It never fails. So maybe I don't know. See, I think they might fight the girl. I think they might fight the girl.
I think so too.
I think they're gonna fight Shanks. There's no way. It's got to be like some dramatic. Like
not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The girl, I think will happen.
Yeah.
And I think
after she choked the wolf, there's no way she's not getting bodied in this arc.
And it would be really cool. Yeah, Luffy's gonna come save the wolf, isn't he? That's what's gonna happen. Luffy needs to save that because he loves animals. He already tamed them, right? He's already friends with the animals, technically. Yeah, I think the girl and Luffy are gonna fight a little bit. And what I really want, like you said, I'm cool with the passing moment. And I think that'll happen at least in some regard. Maybe it'll be more like Shanks is just standing back there silently while they fight, and Luffy's like, "What are you doing? You know, like what? You're right there, Shanks. Why are you letting this happen?" Like I think that would be kind of enticing. But what I really hope happens is that the girl grabs Luffy, but he's like rubber, so she can't like break his arm or whatever, like she did to the other guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would love, but I'm sure she probably knows that. But I just think that would be really funny to be like stop doing this. Like maybe he gets twisted like into a whole pretzel and stuff from like the power, and she's like, but there's just nothing she can do. Maybe she has to stab him. That might be the way. Is like, you know, like kind of like Moria did, but
like Buggy did.
Yeah. Also. But yeah, I do think they're gonna fight the girl a little bit, and I think they'll probably just circle out of there. You know, use the like summon their way out. That would be like. What I hope happens at the end of the arc, I will say, is, and I brought this up like a million times in other places, but I want Luffy to fight Shanks and to have to get Haki on Joy Boy rope level to send him back. And then, so he doesn't actually win, he just gets him out of here, right? And then to me, that's a good middle ground. And, you know, then Shanks could look at Emu and be like, well, you can go try next. Like he beat me, so you know I'm not messing with him anymore. So something like that.
Generation.
Yeah, I personally I would love that. Then our next question here is from Dexter. So this goes into what you were talking about with like the kanji for the God's Knight's name, right? Gunko. So basically what he says is he wants to hear if we think there's any significance to the character's name being written in kanji instead of katakana like it is most of the time. And basically the kanji is literally the kanji for military and child. And so Dexter, I don't know if Dexter is like knows Japanese that well, but he's brought several things up before and has been right. And I also did verify at least some of this, and he's definitely right about pretty much everything here that I checked. So this is definitely legit. He also says that the kanji for child, ko, is also the Chinese zodiac sign for rat, which those, you know, in the Shanks as a rat gang, they might like that. And it's also the first of the Chinese zodiacs, and it's a sign of the rat. Might not be connected, but I think the fact that, you know, Shanks is known as a rat, you know, I think that that's kind of interesting. But also like the military child part, I really like that because something I brought up in my last video is that there has to be a reason that Shanks was at God Valley as a 1-year-old. Like, I don't think they're bringing him around for fun and games. I think there's something there to like indoctrinate him into the God's Knights at a young age. And so the fact that there's like military and child kind of baked into the name right there of the first God's Knight we meet, I think that's what the depiction is like from a very young age, they're bred to be super soldiers. And I think that also goes back to, you know, her having Germa-like shoes, or at least that's what we're kind of like that. And I'm not saying that they're all robots, yeah, or that I'm not saying they even have like bio enhancements. I think it's more like, my theory is that, you know, they sacrifice people at God Valley to power people up somehow, kind of like shadows with Moria. Like you could put a bunch of shadows in you and become stronger. I don't really know how that would work necessarily overall, but I think the idea is like these guys are specifically, I don't know if it's because of their bloodline or what it is, but they are specifically targeted to be powered up to be what they are now, like these military, you know, crazy powerful people, which is why Dragon was so worried about them. But yeah, what do you think? Any thoughts?
That's really interesting. I do think the Zodiac thing could be important as well, because we obviously know that most groups in One Piece have like a theme of some kind, and the fact that the Chinese Zodiac hasn't been a thing in One Piece yet, despite Oda making art of the Zodiac like very often. He literally just did for the new year. He literally had Luffy with the snake because of the year of the snake now.
Right.
I could easily see the Zodiac being the God's Knights, like 100%.
Yeah.
I really like that. But I do think it's really interesting with the powering up concept, and something that we didn't mention at that final scene with Loki, they invited him to be a God's Knight. They straight up were like, "Yo, do you want to? We'll get you to be one."
And he said no.
That's how we'll free you. He said no, which kind of agenda, but Lucci.
Oh.
That's all I gotta say, man.
Well, you and Bushido need to get talking. That's all I gotta say.
They need a spot filled, man. They asked Loki. They asked. He declined. It's interesting.
My only problem with Lucci is like he's already been a villain in 2 arcs, and so if he becomes the God's Knight, he's going to have to be a villain again.
The God Knights, who are gonna fight?
And
the
real
Revs?
quick, and he also just had that whole thing with Kaku about how like they don't care about them at all, and I feel like
that if he leaves, that's even better.
Yeah, that's what I want. Better. That's what I want. Yeah,
that's even better.
And not that he necessarily becomes a pirate. I think that's also iffy, but I think he should definitely leave and be like
do his own thing.
He's like he's specifically like an anti-government agent. Like, you know what I'm like? I think that should be his MO. Is like maybe he hates pirates, maybe he hates other people. I don't care, but I think he should just be strictly like, I want to take out these people in the government that I hate, kind of thing. Like, I think that's maybe his new goal.
Cool. So he's like an assassin still, but just to assassinate the government. That's cool.
Yes. Yeah. He sticks with, because that's what he loves, killing people. Like that's like the one thing about Lucci, for sure, right? So that's what I would like.
He could easily join the Revs with Stussy easily.
And I know this would scare you, but I just want to throw this possibility out there.
Okay.
I think it'd be really cool if Lucci did try to go against the government. Like maybe he did go after Emu, go after Ogorose or whatever. But maybe he dies, and we learn what becomes like why CP0, like when we go back to Guernica and Wano, and he's like, I envy your that you're chasing your own sense of justice, Drake. It's like, what if Lucci tries to chase his own sense of justice and dies because Emu's like, well, I can just smite you because of whatever deal we made or whatever. And then that's our introduction, as we see someone as popular as Lucci, someone as strong as Lucci, get taken out. I think that would be a good introduction to it.
That'd be awesome. And it would show like how the higher up you get in the government, the more under control you are. And that, would be great. We should have that scene. That scene happened. Lucci dies. The higher up in the government idea is put into people's heads, and we're gonna either cut to Akainu or Garp. It's gonna be one of those two, because those two are like the perfect examples of the higher up you go, the less freedom you have. Which is hilarious because Garp is now a prisoner. So.
Yeah, exactly. I like that thought. But yeah, as for the rest of the, kind of what Dexter said there, I think that, like you said, the Chinese zodiacs would be kind of cool. If that's like maybe what all the God's Knights are based on one way or another. It kind of sucks that like, she doesn't have any like rat specific powers or even aesthetic, for like to tie to that. But regardless, I don't know if that really matters. I just think it would be cool if there was some kind of naming scheme, I suppose. I
think maybe it's the first sign of thing, because she's the first one we got the name drop. Well, besides Garling, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see the rest of the God's Knights, because I feel like this is a really strong reveal for the first one. So I'm pumped to see the other ones.
I mean, we need the Skull guy. Skull guy's got to be cool.
Oh, I know. That might be my favorite one. Next question is from Merch Hunter Ricky, my guy, with the hilarious profile picture. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's Shanks holding a blunt. Pretty sure, like he's supposed to be drinking the sake, but it's a blunt or a joint, I guess. Merch Hunter Ricky says, do you think the Holy Knights are a group entirely made up of devil fruit users, or a mix-up like your typical One Piece faction? Simple question, but Gonko calls to me as a weaver human with a fiber fruit. So I guess first off, my answer as far as like the devil fruit thing, personally, I hope none of them have devil fruits and they all have some kind of whatever the Gorosei are doing, you know, like whatever this
powers,
yeah,
it's gotta be
whatever
crazy, weird stuff.
Like I hope Oda goes deeper than just devil fruits, and maybe like where like how devil fruits exist, wherever like the source of those are. I hope Imu's just tapping into it directly and granting these powers like with no side effects. Like maybe she does have quote unquote devil fruit powers, but she didn't eat a devil fruit. But I do think all of them are gonna have different powers, though. I will say that. Like I don't think they're all gonna have this like clothes arrow nonsense. But I could see them all having like they're able to make an arrow like this. You know, like I could see them all having like similar aesthetic, but it's not like maybe she's clothes, maybe someone's like maybe their weapon extends, you know, like they have a sword and it's like a diamante or something like that, like it has like a flag thing, right? Like I think a lot of different people could have something like this, but not in the same way, because Oda's definitely going to give them different powers. But what do you think?
No, I love that. That's awesome. I definitely think this could even connect to the sacrifice thing at God Valley. It could even connect to that. Like maybe because devil fruits are made from will, dreams, like people manifest them with their will. Right. At least that's Vega Punk's theory. If you just kill a bunch of people, you essentially take their will, put it into yourself. You might develop an ability at least from one of those people. You know, it's kind of like how Blackbeard just hunts down people, carries the fruits around. He's like, oh, I'm going to find something eventually if I just get rid of all these people. Interesting. I like it.
Yeah, and you just gave me a big brain blast, dude, because talking about all this Moria stuff, all this shadow stuff, right, all that importance. Remember, when you got new shadows imbued into you during Thriller Bark, you got new abilities. So, for example, when Luffy got his first shadow, he grabbed a sword and was, like, proficient with a sword, that's never happened any other time for Luffy. You know what I'm saying? Excuse me. But he also like sliced ores with like this massive cut, you know, like he was like a samurai when he was Nightmare Luffy, but he was also able to punch. He was crazy. Like he had all these different powers than normal, and so that I actually really like that. Like maybe you know, whatever souls you get from God Valley, they just kind of you get like an amalgamation of all those wills or whatever, and I don't even like, you know what that kind of reminds me of though. And this is actually getting crazy the more we keep talking about this. It reminds me of Caesar and Sad, because he basically blended up a bunch of different animals, and then you just got whatever power came out of it, right? Like you didn't know.
Came out of it.
Like you didn't know. Like you got one random one, or like it was kind of like an amalgamation of like the different whatever he blended up. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe you got like two different animals merged into one. You know, like you got a lot of weird stuff. So actually I really like that like maybe theirs is just a better version of, I don't know how it would really work, because kind of like you said, it would just be like their wills are like mixing in a certain way. So like I don't really get how that would necessarily work. It could just be that it gives Gunko like the power to use her imagination at will or something, like you know, like whatever her will is comes to fruition because of those souls. I don't know.
It could just be like a fuel source, and Emu is the one who gives a ability of some kind.
Yeah.
Just using all that. It's like a transfer of something. I definitely agree, though. The arrow thing, all of them are going to have that. Like 100%. There's no way that's not sticking around.
Yep. I agree, for sure.
I do like this concept, though, of the fiber fruit. Reminds me of Kill la Kill. That's a series I love a lot. And that has a lot of themes with like fibers, like connecting together, like the String of Fate kind of stuff. It could be something like that. That could be interesting. But I'm on the boat of the sacrifice leading to an emu-based ability. And maybe, you know how they mentioned at God Valley, like the point system? Maybe the point system leads to a better power from emu. So it's like a lottery, like the Sad. Oh, nah.
Yeah, no, I literally said that in my Shanks video because they're like hyping it up like it's not just more points. It's like this is like remember how Moria was waiting for Luffy's shadow, like he wanted a really strong shadow to put in the ores. I think it's the same logic. Like if you go kill a bunch of weaklings, then you don't have as much power as if you went and killed a bunch of strong people. Like if I go and kill Kaido, and I'm able to like use his soul, I'm way better than killing some scrubs, you know, like. So yeah, I really hope Oda does that, because that's like really dark also, and like, you know, Oda gets really dark in flashbacks, but like this would be a good time to bring that like into the current time, because the sacrifice, like, you know, God Valley was in the past, but it's still relevant today, and the plot point could be like, Emu plans on sacrificing everybody, so then Emu can control for another 800 years, or maybe like Luffy, like your soul is so strong now that Emu wants that one because Emu can use it for whatever reason. I don't really know, but but yeah, no, I'm excited to see where that goes for sure. Our last question here is from Cymex749, the Bonnie Defender. That's his name there. He's also part of the Laboon Union, which is good. That's the good side. Who you think they'll be willing to recruit to the Gods Knights? I presume, because Loki said no, because they do need a replacement, as you said. Do you think former Celestial Dragons and normal humans are in the question? I think Dofi might join, or maybe even Magellan, or maybe Lucci, as you brought up. So as for, I guess I'm going to kind of answer this backwards. I don't think Dofi would ever join, because they said that he can't be, like, they turned him down to be a Celestial Dragon, and we learned here that, like, you have to be a Celestial Dragon to be a God's Knight, or, you know, like, or if you become a God's Knight, then you're also becoming a Celestial Dragon, whatever, right? And so I think just by that, it won't happen, and I don't know, maybe that's not, like, the most surefire logic, but to me, I just think Oda's made it clear that Dofi will not be a Celestial Dragon again, at least in my mind.
I don't think it's that. I think he just wouldn't, out of spite, because he hates them. There's no way he would, because he's so, like, he wants to destroy everything. There's no way he would join back, like, because they abandoned him, like, how old is Doflamingo, like 40s, 50s?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And they abandoned him when he was like a tween, maybe even younger than that. Like, dude, there's no way after all this time they're just gonna be like, "You're back," and he's like, "No, I'm not."
And he wouldn't want to be under Emu's thumb like that either. You know, especially. But like, if they said you can come be a Celestial Dragon and kick it and just have unlimited money and have slaves and stuff, then maybe he would do that, because he's like, hey, if I don't like it, I'll just leave. He's like, what do I care?
Warlords, to be fair. So yeah,
right. But like the Gods Knights, that's like a little bit too much, I think. Like that's like
too much. Not enough freedom stretches legs, you know.
Yeah, he likes having a little like a good amount of control. As for Magellan, this might be a hot take, but I feel like Magellan's too good of a person to be a Gods Knight, because I know he's like our enemy, but he has like morals behind his, you know, like the way he rules the prison. Like you go back to Shiryu, right? And Shiryu was like killing all the prisoners and, you know, got put in jail and all that stuff, right? He's like down in level 6 because of that. Magellan's trying to run the place, you know, in a proper way. Now, is Magellan, like, I think Magellan might have a hunch that, like, hey, maybe some of these pirates aren't actually that bad. You know, maybe, you know, there's that layer of it where, like, he is, you know, hurting, like, who are technically good people. But they are also criminals by the law, and he's just following the rules. And he's trying to follow the rules in the right way, right? Like I said with Shiryu, like, if Magellan was doing what Shiryu did, then I'd be like, oh yeah, Magellan will be like, he'd signed up to be a God's Knight. But Magellan's like, I think he's too good of a person. Like, I don't think he's actually a bad dude. So I don't think Magellan would. Would you agree with that?
It's an interesting idea for sure, because Magellan will definitely be a part of the final war, more likely than not. Probably because of the Impel Down breakout that will likely happen, because there's no way Doflamingo is a part of the final war. But I don't think he'll be a part of the world government. He already works for them technically, and I feel like with the amount of time that'll pass between the breakout and the final war, which I feel like will be like nothing, I highly doubt he would change his job, move to Marijois, all that stuff, you know.
If anything, he's gonna get fired for the next breakout, and then he'll join the good side or something, you know. Like, to me, I think, and maybe I'm just biased because I really like Magellan. I'm gonna be honest with you. Magellan is an awesome character. I can't wait for him to come back and be. I mean, he's already been back a little bit because he was talking to Doflamingo about the flooding and stuff, right? But yeah. Lucci, I think Lucci, if anyone, has a good chance. I think it's more likely that he would like fight against them, but I can see the logic behind Lucci. Absolutely. As for other Gods Knights, since we have the context that you have to ask and they have to agree, the list gets a lot shorter because of that.
Yeah.
Could you see Buggy agreeing?
No. I don't know. I feel like Pirate King is more of an aspiration than God Knight.
But being a celestial dragon, like Buggy likes money, so I don't know.
He does like money. He does like money. I think maybe this might be a crazy idea. Maybe York creates one. Maybe like it's kind of weird, artificial.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, because I mean, because we don't really like if these are kind of like Germa kids. I mean, that could be like an ultimate seraphim kind of deal, right?
Yeah, and of course, being painful, it'll probably be Ace. Of course, it will. Like because they have his DNA from Impel Down. They could probably use some kind of ability of something to give him something flame related in a way. That would be pain.
What about Blackbeard?
Because he is a warlord, they have his DNA,
and they would. Well, I'm saying like he would agree because he would want to use that just as a way to get to Marijois, right? Like
leverage.
Yeah, he would get to become a celestial dragon now. And then also, depending on how, like, if they do get controlled or whatever, Blackbeard might have a way to, like, get rid of it with his power, right? Like, even if Emu does have to, like, do some ritual thing for him, he might just have a way of stopping it or using it to his advantage, right? Like, he might just... Because think about it that way. Like, not only does he get access, he might get a power-up. And then he's like, well, you guys are dumb. Like, it just gave me all this access for free. I'm about to cook you,
Okay. So I just had this thought, and I can't believe I didn't think about it earlier. But you mentioned Blackbeard. Now this is perfect.
And Shanks and Blackbeard would both be Gods Knights. Anyways.
God. No, but hear me out. What if, because we mentioned this guy earlier, what if Blackbeard uses Caribou as leverage to be like, oh, this guy will be your Gods Knight because you need a filler spot. This guy's pretty strong. And then Blackbeard gets the information out of him. Then he won't need him for anything. He'll just be like, all right, screw you. Especially because he's a fan of Blackbeard. He would feel crushed.
Caribou can bring food to the Celestial Dragons also.
Exactly.
And one other thing. The girl's sleeves look like Caribou's.
No, that's exactly why I thought of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. I think the problem is they probably know that Caribou's weak sauce. Like I think they know more. I think they know better. But well, here's another thing: is I was gonna say Katarina Devon could pretend to be somebody and then go in and get the spot by that way, right? Like what if she pretends to be Loki and walks in? Like not that she has Loki's form, but just like she could pretend to be somebody, that would get the offer. And then that's able to give them access. I feel like I love the idea that Blackbeard does it because they would really be cooking themselves if they gave him a power-up and access to Marijois. And so they bring him in, and then he's just like, well, time to take over, like...
Yeah, literally.
But, then that also would, like, take him away from the ancient weapons talk, because I think that's also very likely. So I could go back and forth on what's going to happen, but I think Blackbeard's a good candidate because him and Shanks both being Gods Knights would be so funny. Like, and then
would be really funny.
And then they fight each other as Gods Knights, right? Like, I think that would be so cool. I don't know though. I don't have any other options. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. Ooh. Wang Ji is another good option. Wang Ji
is a great option.
Yeah, Wang, because he's a free agent. He's a free agent right now. Somebody's got to pick him up on the buyout market before the playoffs start. So I'm wearing the land shirt. I had to got to bring up basketball. I wore this on stream earlier too. I got some comments.
My team is dog right now. Okay, I don't need.
You
We're
got
just
more.
here.
You got more players at the hospital than on the basketball floor, my friend.
Exactly. Those tickets are probably $5.
I bet you were talking about getting tickets earlier. I'm glad you didn't buy them because they're. Or I don't know if you did, but they'd be $5 now. So.
No, I didn't buy it. I mean, that would be a fun time. Fun
It
time
would
to
be.
see him, you know.
Yeah. All right. So with these last like 5 or so minutes, I just want to go through some predictions for the next few chapters.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, my big prediction, which, you know, I feel bad saying this for the next few chapters, but this is just like my #1 agenda at this point. So since Jarl is cooking right now, you know, and he's just saying everything about the past, and Luffy just left, meaning that Usopp is now left with Jarl. It's just Brook, Usopp, and him, I think, that are there at the banquet.
Sanji and Jinbei.
And Sanji and
are there
Jinbei,
as well.
you're right. They didn't go on the ship, right? Well, I think we're almost to the Noland comment from Jarl. We need the I remember when that Noland came and visited me 400 years ago. He was great. Usopp, you remind me of him, my friend. Like that's what I need. That's coming.
You know how he'll remind him of him? Oh, there's this storyteller from all these years ago. Like it's not even about plants. It's not even about anything. It's just the general vibes.
The lies.
It's great.
I want that, and I feel like Oda's setting it up by having Jarl and Usopp hanging out right now. You know, like give it, and then also I'm ready for Brook because he's also there, and Brook also knows stuff from a long time ago, not as long as the Giants, but you know, I just want some chatter about the past. I think that's that is what we need. And we talked about it a little bit. I think we're gonna go like the castle part. I think we're definitely gonna go there, meet the Giants, head over to the Loki. They're gonna meet up. I think that plot line is pretty straightforward. But the thing I want to ask, which we mentioned it a little bit, but the part of the crew that isn't really answered right now is like the ones in the library, right? Chopper and Robin, and I think like Bonnie's there too. She's not.
Oh, Bonnie and Lilith are there.
But Bonnie and Lilith are there too. And so I don't know. Where do you think? I mean, I would imagine Robin's going to read the Harley Text, right? That's got to be coming soon, I would imagine.
Yeah, that was a great prediction when you mentioned like her and Saul decoding that. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that.
Imagine them just tapping back to like Saul didn't really learn anything from O'Hara like back then, but he's learned a lot since then from the books that they kept. You know, I would imagine. So for them to kind of merge all their knowledge, because Saul also probably knows a lot from the library that like from the Elbaf part of the library. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. So for them to kind of merge their knowledge like that, I just think that would be amazing.
That'd be amazing. It would be amazing. And think about it, she probably did learn a lot from the Revs, like you said in that one book. I'm actually really interested in reading that now. I didn't know it was done yet.
That
so
would be
to check that out.
That'd be such a cool call out if like she actually brings that up. Like yeah, during the time skip, we found a few other ancient texts that I hadn't known, so I got used to reading. I'd be like, Robin Cook. Just keep talking. Like I'm ready for a full Robin deciphering chapter, if that's what it's going to be.
We need it. We need it, man.
Yeah, and if you want to read the novels, and to anyone watching, so all of them except for Ace have not been translated into English, so you will not be able to buy these and read them. But as far as the heroine ones, you can go look them up on the wiki, and they have long descriptions, so the short summary, and then also the long summary. And the long summary, I mean, I don't have a lot to compare it to, but it seems pretty thorough. Because the heroine novels specifically are pretty short. I will say the law novel, there is stuff on the wiki, or the wiki is missing stuff compared to the novel that I thought was kind of cool or kind of important, but not like overly so. But since the heroine novels are a lot shorter, it's just one chapter for each girl. That I think is a lot more digestible. Okay. So you can go read that for sure. And one other thing about the Robin part of the novel, Robin's is the best part by far, by the way. The Tashigi's is pretty good too, but like Nami's is like a fashion show, which is like it's like a cool character thing, but not plot relevant whatsoever. Nami like also helps this other girl, which is not plot relevant. Reiju and the rest of the Germa family struggle to cook a meal because they don't have a cook with them, and so that's kind of cool.
Fumbled Cosette so bad.
Oh, bro,
goat. I can't believe
it did such a thing.
Tet.
Yep. for sure. But they didn't have a cook, so they had to learn to cook for themselves, and they sucked at it, and so they like kind of gained respect for Sanji, basically, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. As they should.
Tashigi's was Tashigi's was good because basically she went to this island and there were pirates that were like inhabiting the island, and like the people didn't really know how to kick them out, and so they like her and Smoker start talking about how they're gonna do it. So Tashigi's like sword training. This little girl sees her sword training, so the little girl is like, "Are you really strong?" And so then they kind of go on the Kuina stuff, right? You have Tashigi training another little girl in swordsmanship, which is kind of cool.
Oh.
But then the girl gets mad at her because she's like, "Well, why are you training if you're so strong?" And Tashigi's like, well, you got to keep training. Like, I'm not the strongest in the world, which is another world's strongest swordsman thing, right? That's just so cool. And then the girl gets mad because she's like, oh, so you're weak then? You know, it's kind of like the idea, like, because she's like, okay, well, that's not what she says, but I think that what Oda's going for is, you know, this girl is embodying kind of like she's like another example of a girl not being that strong. You know, she's like, I thought you were going to be the difference maker, you know, like the girl who was going to be strong that I could root for or whatever. I think that was the idea. But then what happens is the little girl goes after the pirates and gets captured because she can't defeat them.
Of course.
Tashigi goes in and beats all the pirates just by herself. And then the girls...
sounds like she's like Shanks or something. This is crazy.
Well, these pirates have to be scrubs. She almost loses because she almost gets like stabbed in the back. So it's not that great. But either way, then the girl's like, wow, you really are strong. And so it's just a cool lesson of like her inspiring another girl swordsman. So that's like cool, not like plot relevant. But for Robin's, I know I just spent a long time talking about it, but for Robin's,
she's sick.
The other cool thing, and this is maybe the best part of all of them, is right at the very end, she's talking to Sabo because they're about to drop her off at Sabaody. And she promises Sabo not to tell Luffy that he's alive.
Oh my god, that's so awesome.
Yep, that's awesome. That was like my favorite part of all of them. Like that's just it because we like that conversation had to happen. You know what I mean? And so for them to include that, like fire, you know. So Robin's was the most relevant. And for what it's worth, in case you're interested, the thing that Koala deciphered was like a food recipe, and so it wasn't like super important, but because like basically they found these mushrooms on this island where they found the text, and the mushrooms were really bitter, and the text described how to get rid of the bitterness, basically, so they could eat the mushrooms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a cool thing like that. But I think the lesson is Koala. Don't sleep on Koala. That's the lesson there. Never
sleep on Koala.
You got any last second predictions before we go, Kev?
Last second predictions. Saul baggage, talking about how Elbaf has changed, like that kind of stuff. We got to get that. Like more. I think we're definitely getting more of that because we had that dichotomy with Ripley and Saul. You know, she's from Elbaf. She's a warrior. She wants the generation to be more warrior focused. Saul, not from Elbaf, doesn't, you know, that culture clash, we need more. That was so good. And Oda's getting into some really interesting themes, like not just culture clash, but like we were mentioning earlier, like the religious like schism kind of vibes. Like this is so like real, and it's like this is crazy. This is not at all what I expected from Elbaf, but it's so like intricate, and I like it a lot. So I'm hoping for that for sure. Outside of that, honestly, I don't know if you know. I feel like, isn't Frankie kind of by the library as well?
Or because he wanted to learn more about the Atom Tree, right? I think that was yeah.
Because I feel like we'll see him for sure, like soon.
I hope so, man. Frankie needs some love, maybe more than any other Straw Hat. Like, I'm gonna be honest.
For real. We need more Frankie, especially after all this fun little shenanigans we're getting with probably Usopp and talking with the Giants. We need more of that, please. Yeah, please. But the thing I'm looking forward to the most, and genuinely, I want to see Roto get beat up so many times, because we didn't mention it, but Zoro looked cold in this chapter. Like that panel where it's like, it would have been your head. Like he would have killed Roto right there. Like, and he just says it straight up. I love that.
Yep.
I want to see Roto get beat up. That's my big expectation. I think that'll be fun. But the thing I'm looking forward to the most is either that Robin thing you're saying with Saul and the language. That would be amazing.
Please.
Would love that. Or, Usopp. More Usopp. It's Elbaf. It's his time to shine. It's time.
Yeah, I'm ready for any Usopp hype. And I think it's coming. I think it could start with the Nolan stuff, which, personally I would definitely like the most, but it could also who knows? I mean, with the way that he's lying about beating Oars, I think that's Oda starting to trickle in the
lies.
Yeah, like that. Like Usopp's gonna become a brave warrior of the sea because something gets misconstrued, or something. Like he will do something amazing, but I think it'll get drummed up to be something more than it is, or something different than it is, and it'll get interpreted. But hopefully that starts soon. I don't know.
And a lot of the stuff that they talked about, because a lot of these people that know them, they don't know all the Straw Hats. They mostly know Usopp, Oimo and Kashi, he saved them. Irodin saved him. Like, they would be eating this crap up, 100%.
Yep.
But it'll be built up some more, I agree.
Well, Kev, thank you for joining me on this amazing chapter to talk about. Do you have anything you'd like to say to the people? Anything you'd like to plug before we go?
Well, if you do want to check me out, my name will be down there somewhere. You know how it is. Phenomenal chapter, though. I'm always so happy when One Piece gets these chapters like this. I don't even know how to imagine all this stuff that was built up in such a little amount of time. Loki's flashback being so similar to Odin's and Luffy, so many little things that I just love so much, and I can't wait for next week or next chapter. I don't know if it's next week, but I'm certain it'll be a great time. That's all I need to know. After all the greatness this was,
I totally agree. Oda is on another level. One Piece has slowed down a little bit. We've gotten only 7 chapters in the last 3.5 months, and the anime's on hiatus. We don't have the Wit Studio remake yet. We don't have live action season 2 yet. We don't have a movie on the way. We're in a little bit of a lull, but it doesn't really. But when we get chapters like this, it doesn't even feel like it. You know what I mean? It feels like we are right in the heat. And I'm ready for the rest of 2025, man. That's all I gotta say. It's gonna be a good year for One Piece.
It's gonna be a fantastic time in Elbaf. We're not leaving here anytime soon.
No,
for
sir.
Sure.
No,
please
sir.
Please don't leave Elbaf.
No.
Please don't leave.
No, sir.
It's it's funny. I always think about Recon's skit he did, the arc fatigue.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be hilarious looking back on that scene. It'll be don't leave Elbaf. And I know so many people on Twitter or whatever are gonna be another house with the annoying things on the end. And I'm just we are here for Elbaf, okay? Yeah. Let us stay in this moment.
Yeah, we got to soak that in. Oda. I'm ready for 100+ Elbaf chapters. I won't complain.
Please.
Please. I don't think too many people will complain at all. But
yeah.
But all right, guys, we're heading out. As I said before, we are going to be doing, not Kev every single time, but I will be doing a review with somebody for every chapter for the rest of the year, and probably for the rest of the series. I would imagine, unless you guys really start disliking these, then I won't. But it seems like you guys like them, so we're definitely going to keep them coming. So yeah, make sure you guys like and subscribe. It would do a lot for the algorithm. We're trying to grow the channel over here. And I guess I'll say this now at the end of the video. I haven't fully planned it out, but whenever we hit 10K over here, I am going to be giving something away. I have minimum some TCG cards. I got some One Piece plushies I'm trying to give away and stuff like that. I don't know what I'm going to give away over here versus the main channel, because I'm trying to get a giveaway over there too. But basically what I'm saying is you guys should definitely subscribe, because at some point whoever is amongst the first 10K subscribers will have a chance for something. So yeah, we're trying to grow the channel over here. So
it's all 2025 year of growth. You know what it is.
But all right, guys, we're heading out. Thank you all for watching. Seriously, I appreciate it. And see you guys next week. Peace.